Hello, hello. It's Brandi's World, and thank you for tuning in. Today, we're trying something a little different. What kind of podcasts out there specifically talk about or target transgender issues? So I simply typed in transgender into my search bar, hit the search button, and a few transgender shows came up. The top ones were hosted by transgender people. I'm familiar with a few of them, but not far down that list, within the top 6 of it, was a show called, let me get the title here. It is called Generation Indoctrination Inside the Transgender Battle. That's how they put it. And there is 2 seasons. I have not listened to a word of it yet. I'm going to experience this with y'all. We're going to start off with, they have season 1, episode 1 trailer. And the trailer is Generation Indoctrination Inside the Transgender Battle. I guess, okay, it's 1 minute long and it's just going to explain it. So we'll play this.
What a lie from the pit of hell. These folks that are telling these children, oh, it's not going to hurt you long term. These kids are being sold a lie.
Botched and destroyed lives, the loss of parental rights, growing intolerance. The costs of the transgender craze are quickly mounting. On the Generation Indoctrination podcast, we'll explore the disturbing philosophy, the diabolical dynamics in our schools, the legislative battles, and the ominous chronology that brought us to this juncture. In addition to the disturbing history, we'll investigate the dire implications on kids and families, as well as the unsettling and heartbreaking stories from those directly impacted.
I was floored. They are colluding and collaborating with minor children to exclude parents from these critical decisions.
We'll explore how
exclude parents from critical decisions. Whoa, that's quite the statement.
Facts and reality to the side and punishing detractors. The chaotic state of the gender wars is no doubt having a serious impact on families and our institutions, and most importantly, young lives. The size and scope of the problem is undeniable. Generation Indoctrination explores the problem and paves the way toward a solution. Join us as we tackle this essential issue.
Okay.
What a lie from the pit of hell.
Oh, wait a minute. Oops. Okay, so that is just the intro. Apparently, my existence as a transgender woman and others like me, our existence, I guess, is a war against them somehow. I don't know. But we're going to have some fun with this podcast within the first minute of their podcast, which is supposed to be set up sort of like a documentary style thing, which has, season 1 has 8 episodes, it looks like. And season 2 has, it looks like 7 episodes. Okay, so with that, okay, so season 1, there's a second trailer here. This is a 5-minute trailer. We're going to listen to a few parts of this 5-minute. In this season 1, episode 2 trailer is called, quote, A Lie from the Pit of Hell. Extended trailer from Generation Indoctrination Inside the Trans. Oh, so they just extend this from 1 minute to 5 minutes. Wow, here we go.
What a lie from the pit of hell. These folks that are telling these children, oh, it's not going to hurt you long term. These kids are being sold a lie.
Botched and destroyed lives, the loss of parental rights, growing intolerance. The costs of the transgender craze are quickly mounting. On the Generation Indoctrination podcast, we'll explore the disturbing philosophy, the diabolical dynamics in our schools, the legislative battles, and the ominous chronology that brought us to this juncture.
It's important, though, to really look at the kind of dark history here.
You know, John Money was an experimenter on human beings, and this predated informed consent and experimental design and protection of human subjects.
Money was a psychologist and professor at Johns Hopkins University. He believed that babies were born gender neutral and that environment ultimately determined whether a child becomes male or female.
He believed that boys could be raised as girls and vice versa.
In addition to the disturbing history, we'll investigate the dire implications on kids and families, as well as the unsettling and heartbreaking stories from those directly impacted.
At the height of the pandemic, my daughter told my husband and myself that she was experiencing confusion over her sex.
Okay, whoa. Alrighty. And we're hearing a lot of loaded language in here. Like, automatically it's assumption that there's a binary there, a boy or a girl. Like, all human experiences are just from one culture, and that culture happens to be binary on this gender construction, right? So they're starting off already with a binary. Then they're starting off saying that you're born not neutral, you're born either boy or girl. Because they're like, hey, this doctor says environment and your culture around you kind of create and dictate what we shape and use as gender. Like, we perform and we express gender identities. And I guess there's a doctor that says, hey, look, when you're born you have sexual characteristics. Yeah, true. That's not your gender, though. And see, this is where a lot of it gets confused, is there's a conflation between sexual characteristics and gender identity. Those two are not, they're not yoked to or dictated by each other. Your sexual characteristics most likely will align with your gender identity in the way we do this binary, because a binary kind of works for most people, but not all people. And that's what we're talking about here, not all the people who fit into the binary. We're talking about people whose gender identity does not align with their sexual characteristics. And that's what it means to be a transgender person, is to express that. You say, look, I have these sexual characteristics, but that's not my gender. My gender's inside of me. And if I'm able to express that, it's not going to reflect this sexual characteristic that I happen to be born with. Unfortunately, I wasn't aligned with the sexual characteristics with typically for my gender, right? So it doesn't change my gender and identity. It's just, this is my expression, and I need to express my gender, and that's not always expressing through sexual characteristics. My sexual characteristics do not express my gender, and I hope they don't express yours either. I hope your whole gender is not focused around your genitals, because that's weird, right? Not everyone goes through life, their entire life, with their genitals. Some people, unfortunately, lose their genitals. It doesn't mean they lose their gender identity, because your genitals don't equal your gender identity. And I have a feeling in this podcast that's not going to get through to any of these people. They're going to be convinced that sexual characteristics are equated to gender identity, or gender expression, or gender performance. But they're not, folks. Different concepts, different things. So let's continue here.
After a few weeks into school, my daughter got into the car and told me she had a meeting with school officials where they asked her which restroom she wanted to use. I was floored. They are colluding and collaborating with minor children to exclude parents from these critical decisions.
Which bathroom would you prefer and be more comfortable using? When you have to pee or poo, where would you be more comfortable? Apparently, that's an unreasonable question to ask a student. Is the student supposed to respond? I don't have a good response to where I'm comfortable. I have to refer to my parental unit, who will tell me where I'm comfortable pooping or peeing. What? What the? All right, let's continue.
Impact their health and well-being at school.
We noticed that, our girls were coming home saying they were concerned about using a bathroom now, because now you have boys that may come into those girls' restrooms and
See, boys that may go into the girls' restroom, that's an issue. I agree. I don't want boys going into the girls, anything we section off, say this is for girls. People who identify as boys shouldn't be going into the zone that is exclusive for the people who identify as girls. I understand what it's like to be in that environment. I went to an all-women's college. But the conflation is when they say boys want to go into a girl's, you came to your conclusion that person, and you labeled them. You said that individual, let's not ask them how they feel on the inside about their gender identity. Let's just assume the label and stick it with them, and whatever they think or feel doesn't matter because you're going to keep that label, and whatever they do now goes against that label we keep placing on them. Well, that's not fair. Why don't you ask the child, hey, how do you feel about your gender identity? Oh, by the way, hey child, how do you feel about being left-handed or right-handed? Do we dictate that as well? Because both of those things come from within. Your gender identity is within you. Your handedness is within you. Neither one you choose, neither one you control. Either one you can discover, and either one you can express. Handedness and gender identity are both within. So if a child looks inside themselves and identifies, hey, I'm feminine. I'm what our society describes as feminine. Yeah, that kind of reflects inside of me. Maybe I want to express that. Maybe as a society, we should encourage our children to express how they feel within themselves and how they look at themselves and feel, oh my God, this is how I feel. When I close my eyes, when I look in a mirror, this is what I see. Or what I want to see in a mirror when I close my eyes and look in my mind and imagine the me. And I open my eyes. Don't you want to get close to that? Or at least be on the path to getting close to that image? Because that's your identity. And that's when they mislabel that child and say, F you, child. I don't care how you feel on the inside. I have a label for you that was assigned to you on day one, and stick with that label. Because that label was there because you had a sexual characteristic we all recognized. So, equation, sexual characteristic, gender identity, those must be the same. But they're not. Sexual characteristics are not the same as gender identity, folks. And we're going to hear this a time and time again. If we can just get through a society and recognize the fact that those are two different concepts, two completely different things that sometimes happen to align with each other. Wow, it's fascinating. But it's not a way to dictate someone's identity by either their sexual characteristic or their gender identity. Those might not always align. All right, so here we go.
So they just decided to hold it for the day. Or I would ask, how come your water bottle's still full? And they said, we just decided not to drink anything today.
We deal with moms almost every day whose children are either captured in some way by gender identity indoctrination or gender dysphoria, or also schools that are intervening in really inappropriate ways with children outside of the consent and knowledge of parents.
Plus, we'll explore how medical organizations and clinics have co-signed the affirmation-only philosophy, pushing facts and reality to the side and punishing detractors.
The first weapon that they use is that if you don't believe what we say, then you are bigoted and hateful. Because if anybody does really, come outside the box and say, whoa, wait a minute, this isn't right, they are immediately attacked in any way possible.
Wait a minute. What is the "this isn't right" part they're talking about? Do you notice how they always leave that very vague? When they're trying to defend their position of bigotry, of pushing back on the existence of transgender people, or pushing back on the ability for people to express their inner identity outward, when they push back on that, you notice they get very vague, because if they were very specific on what they are saying, they sound like a monster, because what they are requesting is monstrous. They're requesting children not to express who they are and not to live the life that would best suit them, because it's aligning their identity with their expression. That's what it means to be trans. It means that you're trying to align your inner identity with your outward expression and your outward performance. Your gender identity, your gender expression, and your gender performance are three concepts. One is innate within you, just like handedness. That is your identity. One is expression, and that is projecting that identity from inward to outward. That is your gender expression. Everyone expresses their gender within the culture that they exist in. The culture you're raised in, the culture you exist in, the societies that you interact with, all have concepts of gender descriptions. And you express your identity outward by your dress, by your hair, by how you stand, how you talk, and you perform your gender identity in the ways you interact with society around you and also with yourself. So those three concepts should not be muddled together and considered one monolith. Your identity may not be reflecting your expression, or your expression may not be reflecting your identity. If you want our children of our society to express their inner self, you allow them to express that gender as well. Gender expression comes from inside to outward. That is the transition part, is transitioning the expression and the performance from one socially constructed box of gender to the other binary socially constructed box of gender. And that's why it is transgender. You're transitioning your expression and your performance, and you are projecting and expressing your identity. You're not changing the inside part. You discover the inside part. It is like waking up one day and going, holy wow, I am left-handed. Wow, I'm not supposed to be left-handed. Oh my goodness. I am now going to transform that into right-handedness. Can you? Same concept. You do not control that. You understand that, and you discover that you're either left-handed or right-handed. You do it pretty early in life, usually. Quit abusing and bashing kids for wanting to express who they are. Oh my goodness, we're going to hear a lot more about stifling children from expressing themselves. Let's listen a little bit more.
Trans idea comes back to a philosophy that each person is sort of sovereign, that there is no human nature. There's no claim on us except what we choose to submit ourselves to, consent to be governed, consent to sexual activity or whatever. But I define who I am. I decide what's true, my truth, your truth. I decide what.
My truth, your truth. You got to ask what your concept of truth is. Is truth a reflection of reality? Is it that what's the best describes the reality to that statement? To me, that would be truth, which best describes reality, or most closely aligns with reality. The reality is there are children out there whose sexual characteristics do not align with their gender identity. Therefore, allow them to express themselves. Here we go.
I do with my body.
The chaotic state of the gender wars is no doubt having a serious impact on families and our institutions, and most importantly, young lives.
One of the biggest concerns that we've had is the way that religion is being weaponized against parents.
The scariest part about this gender revolution for me is the emphasis on family abolition. The idea that if your parents are unsupportive, you should reject them. That children should be removed from families that don't wish to medically or socially transition a child.
Our children are having an identity crisis because parents have been having an identity crisis. We need to reacquire who we are. We are the authorities.
The size and scope of the problem is undeniable. Generation Indoctrination explores the problem and paves the way toward a solution.
What is the problem? They're saying the problem is that we exist, right? That me as a transgender person may influence a young person to express who they are as well. The war would be to stop that, right? That is what they see the problem is. They see the problem is that A, transgender people exist, like me. B, transition people exist within our society, so they interact with people in our society. Ooh, bad. Problem C, some of them reach people who are under 18, and wow, that is scary. Transgender people interact with younger people. They may influence them to be like them. Oh no. Wow, let's declare a war. That is literally what's going on. Give me a better demonstration of what this war is about. It is about the existence of transgender people and that we have a voice that may reach people under the age of 18. You know what? Every single transgender person who exists and is alive today, guess what? They were also children at one point. Guess what? If you came out today and said, I am left-handed and screw all of you who think that I should be right-handed, does it matter when you discovered that you were left-handed? Maybe you performed right-handedness all your life. As a child, you didn't even think about being left-handed. You were always told to be right-handed, so you did right-handed things. Whether you were successful or not, you did the right-handed things. Later in life, you discover, holy crap, I'm left-handed. It feels better. It's more comfortable. Being left-handed is me. What would you do? Should we go to war with people who discover they're left-handed and reach out to other people and say, you might be left-handed. You should check. Hey, even though you're a young person, it's kind of hard to juggle right-handed, left-handed things. Why don't you try looking in the mirror and looking in yourself and maybe you are left-handed. Just check. And if you're not, say, guess what? You're not left-handed. Go back to being right, doing right-handed stuff. Is that so bad for a child? Is that so bad for a person in their 20s, in their 30s, in their 40s? If you had something innate within you that you cannot change or choose, would you want to recognize it? Would you want to discover who you are on the inside? Maybe that scares too many people. Maybe that's it. Maybe people are scared to discover who they really are. I discovered who I really was. Unfortunately, I was in my 40s, and it robbed me of a lifetime of expressing me instead of struggling to try to be the other-handedness or the other binary gender assignment. Do you want your children, do you want children of our society to struggle to fit into a label assignment that was placed on them based on a sexual characteristic they happen to have had at day one? And that's how you want the rest of their lives. They're supposed to live to 80 years old, right? We're humans. We average about 80 years on this planet. How do you want that individual to spend the 80 years? Do you want them to spend most of it trying to be handedness that they're not? Because they have a label that tells them which handedness they are? Or which gender box they belong in? Or do you want them to discover the genderness within them, that identity within them? And do you want them to express that? Do you want children to express who they are? Allow transgender people to express who they are. I am fortunate and privileged. I express who I am. And I am a happier person for that. I am a better person in society because I express who I am. I like me. Allow your child, allow children to express who they are and to be that person that they are in the inside. Allow them to express that. All right, so let's see, we got about 32 more seconds left on this. Okay, let's see if we could finish this.
I've heard people compare this ideology to a cult. I've heard people compare this to, the fascism and totalitarianism movements that we've seen in the past. But ultimately, this is even bigger than any of those things, because it's not happening in one country. It's not happening on one continent even. This is global.
Join us as we tackle this essential issue.
Okay, wow. All right, so I think we're going to do a little series. I'm not how often I can jump into this podcast and listen to it, but I have some opinions and I have some questions. I have some thoughts about this podcast and this type of thinking in general. It's cancerous to our society to be so hateful and bigoted towards people for what? For being who they are? Stop treating people like they're less than because they don't fit your predetermined mold you want them to. And stop considering a group of people as a scapegoat or a point of persecution because you don't understand them. Transgender people are not dangerous. We are in danger. We are not a threat in your bathroom. We are threatened in the bathroom. We are not a threat to children. We are children who are threatened and persecuted. Transgender people, all of them, were also children. Not all children grow up to be transgender, but all transgender people were children. Think on that. And quit with these abusive laws that hurt the vulnerable minority group of us. Of us Americans, you're hurting direct Americans. Transgender people are people. Transgender Americans are Americans. Transgender children are children. We're just people. Allow us to be us. Thank you.